This video deals with the higher programs in our brain, better in our psyche. Are the higher programs more diverse, but to a greater extent depend on complex memories? In our presentation we investigate fundamental questions. Why do we act? How do we act? What does our action make us? And how do we get our existing? Of course, all areas of consciousness play a role again, including consciousness, subconsciousness and unconsciousness. But how exactly does the impulse arises in our inner world for an activity in the outer world? How does a person define their reality? As usual, the conscious is blue, the subconscious is green, and being unconscious varies from violet to the inherent white, consisting of all colors. We recognize blocks with memories, imaginations and emotions, further ones in which desires and needs can find their place. In addition, we have a pool of resources and skills. These areas are marked in green because they are part of the subconscious, although it appears to us that they are fully conscious. In this explanation, simplify the presentation by allowing the five senses to send their impressions directly to the consciousness. We know that in reality it is not the conscious but the subconscious that receives information, more precisely the basic programs within the subconsciousness. It is only through the consciousness filter function that just selected sensory impressions reach consciousness at all. There they generate ideas and trigger memories and emotions. These then trigger wishes and give rise to new needs. Inside we feel like these needs are becoming conscious, part of our self. However, the new desires are always based on values, extend or connected to old desires, old values, and ultimately based on the four basic needs, and even deeper on the survival instincts. We start to satisfy these new desires immediately with the help of our skills and resources to satisfy them as quickly as possible. We can do this by using a behavioral pool that provides us with learned action programs. Again, like the sensory impressions, all of these parts appear to be part of the conscious mind, but in fact they are based on memories and are part of the subconscious. For this reason, these ideas are marked green within the blue consciousness. Let's take a closer look to this phenomenon in an example. I still vividly remember my childhood. Do you remember how it was back then at Christmas time? One day I saw this bike in a commercial. Instantly I thought of how my best friend got his bike for his birthday and how proud and happy he was about it. Now I saw a bicycle on TV that I might be able to ride around after Christmas. A bike that others would envy me for. I was so excited that I absolutely had to have it. The desire for the bike never let go of me. I started thinking about what I would have to do to get it. I had the idea to put the bike on my wish list. What was happening in my consciousness? The moment I saw the bicycle advertisement, a memory came to my mind that gave rise to an idea of my possible future. As a result, exciting feelings of happiness developed in my body. And I really wanted to have more of these feelings. In my mind, of course, becomes aware only the image of a beautiful red bike. The bike became a strong desire, based on other needs as shown. In order to make my wish come true, my subconscious searched my abilities and my resource pool. In consciousness, I realized that the only way I can get this bike is to put it on my wish list. What then happened is clear. My conscious gave my subconscious an idea, a picture of this action. This, in return, generates a strategy that should lead to the achieved goal. It sent several ideas to my consciousness, one after another. Look for a pen and a paper, then write the words wish list and bicycle on it, then give the note to the parents. The individual actions as part of the overall strategy are only triggered by consciousness, similar to turning on a light switch. No one cares how the current flows through any wires. The subconscious gets a command to write the word bicycle, and the movements learned in the past for the individual letters are searched for in the action pool and executed one after the other. Just as before, the overall strategy was generated from the skills and resource pool and transmitted to the consciousness. The feedback of an action is received immediately after, linked to the corresponding action, and from now on influences all beliefs and value systems of the subconscious. Feedback is diverse and is only consciously perceived to a small extent. Depending on whether the bike can actually be found under the Christmas tree or not, the corresponding feelings are naturally also generated in the body. The subconscious and the conscious are constantly interacting. The subconscious gives the conscious its possibilities based on belief systems and values, from which in turn feelings are generated. These are of course based on the memories of the past that have already been saved. For the conscious mind, however, it seems that it controls everything itself, since the consciousness filter hides from the conscious mind the many processes that are going on in the background. After all, the consciousness should concentrate on the higher context, on the thing itself, and not be constantly distracted by small things. When everything is going well, good feelings arise, and that is exactly what the subconscious aims for. Good feelings adhere to the body's survival, through it is relaxed and balanced. Quite unlike the bad stress causes in bad feelings. Bad feelings make it difficult for the body to regenerate because it is constantly on the alert. The process between the conscious and the subconscious build up belief and value systems over time, and it links feelings to them. This system forms a person's ego. This ego makes us feel abstract desires and needs that need to be satisfied in return. These desires and needs are usually much more complex than the simple basic needs and are formed naturally by the environment. For this reason, they are marked red within the area of consciousness. If we have influenced our environment through actions, the feedback of the action is delivered to the subconscious. There, it is immediately linked to the action taken and evaluated. Again, the rational mind seems to evaluate it at the same time, but only gets the information passed by the filter for evaluation. And here, too, the memory of the subconscious is accessed again. If the evaluation is not satisfactory, further actions may be thought and triggered in the pool. Again, new values and beliefs emerge or old one changes. We get an associated feeling. References to actions are thereby rearranged, and ultimately the outcome of the action, as well as the action itself, has an impact on our identity. We are approaching the realm of unconscious. The bandwidth of the unconscious seems to vary greatly from person to person. Perhaps you remember the aspect of the unconscious. Even if all its parts are present at birth, it is only slowly in life that we come to understand what it really is. The more knowledge and experience a person has within them, the easier it is for them to recognize all aspects of the unconscious. The context of consciousness must be right for its understanding, and that is only possible if the subconscious has stored the right behavioral patterns and experiences. A process that runs through the whole of life becomes recognizable here. It is represented in our illustration as the arrow pointing upwards, and through it passes through all planes of human existence. Whether the all-including unconsciousness ultimately contains a God must and can only be answered personally for oneself. In our Mantis model, the concept of spirituality can be understood as part of the unconscious and thus play an important role in its understanding, regardless of whether a person perceives himself as spiritual or not. Because every activity, even the simplest course, has a result, leaving a shadow that is visible to everyone else, even without the person doing the action being present. For example, if a book is written, it can be read without the author. The thoughts within it are less bound to space and time than the author himself. Millennia after it was written, it can still be read and influence other people. The spirit of the author lives on. Let's assume then that spirituality is an aspect of the unconscious and range from pure survival instinct to being universal. Everything is contained in the unconscious, even action that happens, as well as the culture with its historical background, on the basis of which the action was carried out. If at the beginning we are guided almost exclusively by our ego, at first we are only related to ourselves to ensure survival. Then our interests slowly increase as our world expands and our horizon shifts. We develop, start a family after we think we have understood our body and our psyche and see ourselves as social integrated. After we learn social behavior and start our families, secure them through our friends, we all live in societies with similar values and ideas. Moral values are now emerging, different societies forming together, hopefully an ethical nation with a common historical background and thus a similar culture. And every nation with its developed ethics naturally belongs to the human species. Today we are increasingly recognizing that we humans too, as spiritual beings, are only living beings in a large organism of planet Earth in which all life is interwoven and dependent on one another. And since we have ventured into space at the latest, we have begun to understand that everything that is woven into the even greater network of the universe. We can recognize we first act based on our ego, based on belief systems, values and emotions that we remember and imagine, triggered by the five senses. How we act, however, is determined by our abilities, resources, the behavior and action pool of the subconscious. The more experience we have in our memory, the more flexible we can react to situations and the more tolerant and understanding we become. As a result of our activities, we get our own identity, which makes us who we are. It becomes understandable that individually we have to move on the level of the ego, and only material achievements, our values, our ideas, dominate over time. They fundamentally ensure survival. Over time, however, we should continue to develop, rise in our actions, influence the environment on the one hand to an even greater extent, and as the complexity progresses, also more indirectly, more universally, more subtly and more persistently. As knowledge ages, the instinctive behavior of our old brain areas should lose their dominance, making way for the higher functions and possibilities of the creative and inventive new areas of the cerebral cortex.